Hello, welcome
Hello.
back to week 6 of Unpicked. It's Kids Week, and it's probably the hottest day of the year at long last. We're all sweating away, aren't we? You had sports day.
Yeah,
Marvellous. We've finally got our summer here in the UK, and it'll be about 3 days worth and it will go.
supposed to be cooling down tomorrow, isn't it?
But yes, here we are, as always, the show that watches the sewing bee. We love it. We've been watching it for, I think this is about our 5th year doing it as Unpicked on YouTube. And we then talk about it. What did we like? What frustrated us? And so forth. And we'll go straight into the comments because... At some point, Ting, you have to go for Prime Minister because Elise says, I have one thing to say. Ting for Prime Minister. You should show up tired every week. Vastly entertaining last week. It was a good one.
I mean, I'm not fresh as a daisy today, but not as tired as I was last week. But yeah, we can't hang around tonight. I've got a debate to do in in an hour.
But it did cause a lot of controversy because of the time, again, seeing unfinished garments. And of course, I done the time analysis as well. So it was clearly apparent, certainly on the made to measure. I'm sure it's probably the same for the pattern challenge. But for the made to measure, the time had been going down. So that's why we're consistently seeing unfinished garments. And it's just not fun to watch, is it?
No, and I think, we saw from my comments last week and then the comments on the video, which I steered clear of for a couple of days and then reluctantly had a look and see what was being said. But it's clearly a thread for everyone. A lot of the audience are frustrated that we're not seeing finished items.
Yeah, absolutely. Simon says, as always, Ting is spot on. The timing research was very revealing, Stuart. Keep up the good work, lads. Thank you, Simon. And then, because you said you might not do the rest of the series, you might stop watching. Lillian goes, Ting, no. You've got to get us to the end, no matter what. Please don't bail. Yes, well... And the last thing, this is the last we're going to talk about timing because we're not allowed to talk about it for the rest of the series, because otherwise we're going to sound like a broken record, aren't we?
Well, it's all queued up for today.
Charlotte says, I totally agree with your comments. How can we be halfway through the series and 30 to 50% of garments not being finished? That's it. That is a first, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we've had a big chat about it last week. Also, someone else had a big chat about it last week too. We've often talked about Kate and the Fold Line. She has her pattern shop online where she sends patterns out. And she does these videos every week where she goes through all the made-to-measures and she finds the commercial patterns that either did form the pattern or are inspired by it. It's brilliant. We've talked about if you want to find a pattern, you go to the Fold Line and you watch her weekly videos. She interviewed Patrick Grant. It's amazing. It's it's about longer than that. It was about an hour video on the Fold Line, and I'll have the link in the description so you can find it quickly if you want to. But you need to go to 42 minutes in because Patrick talks about Harris Tweed and all his stuff on Savile Row. The Sewing Bee chat is at 42 minutes, and it literally starts, because I've written this down. This will, if you're interested in the whole timing thing. Kate goes, I think the times have got shorter, haven't they? And Patrick, in his best way, like a politician answer, skirted round that, didn't say anything about them getting shorter. But he did comment and make some nice comments about the way it's done. So if you're fascinated on finding out how the pattern challenge, for example, is done, timing-wise, go and have a look from there. But a couple of points he said was he did comment on Series 10, which we're on now, episode 1, where no one finished. But he then explained how they draft it, how they make a sample of it, and it's given out to a team to then sew. And then it's also given to previous sewing bees to test out, Ting. Now, did you know that?
I didn't until this last week because I think it wasn't just this. He was on something else and clearly the time issue is a contentious issue. I've never known that he's, him or anyone has had to come out and try and defend what's going on. But I think that's because people like us, viewers and lovers of the program, are frustrated. And it's funny that he's obviously agreed to do this, and then has talked about it,
Yeah.
and then him and Esme have been doing. Like you can go to the theatre and they sit on the stage and they like tell their.
Oh yes, like a live thing.
So somebody had put on one of the Facebook groups that they were in Cambridge recently, and the pair of them had been there, and a similar thing had come up again, and so part of you's wanting to go. And I know Patrick's just the presenter, but part of you wants to go. Well, Patrick, you need to say something, because he can't enjoy it either. You don't want to, as a teacher, you don't want to be constantly saying to students, that's no good, it's no good, it's no good. You're not very good at this. You need to do better. You obviously want them to improve and take advice. And if they're constantly presenting stuff that's unfinished, then it's not good for him either. No. And it's not his job to defend, decisions made by producers and so on. So I know we often target our ire at those two judges, but it's still part of a bigger problem with the program.
Absolutely.
Patrick's not the one deciding these things.
Well, I found this fascinating, Tig, and I'd like your opinion on this as a teacher, because I've got certainly mine. 47 minutes and 45 into this conversation, he goes, it's got, and this is a quote, I've taken this down, it's got more difficult because the general standard amongst contenders is really high. And we have to find a way to make sure we can separate them. If we gave them, everyone gave them enough time so everyone would finish it beautifully and well, you'd have 12 perfect garments. I disagree with that. What would you say?
I would disagree with that as well, because if they were 12 perfect sewers, they would have gone into week 1 and we'd have had 12 finished garments.
Yeah.
We're not getting 1 or 2 unfinished garments, as I'm sure we'll talk. Well, I don't know if you'll let me talk about it now, but when we talked about the other one, there were 5 out of 7 bomber jackets that were not finished.
Yeah.
So,
what can I hear? I thought I could hear kids chatting and screaming. That's because it's kids screaming.
Might be outside.
Oh, that's coming through on your microphone. Wow. But from my point of view, from back in my days with drama and teaching, I could have given the class 2 hours and the same class 8 hours. I can still guarantee you're not going to have a whole class producing stunning work. You are still going to be able to rank them from high to poor, because you know what it's like, you get 8 hours. Some people might just spend the first 3 hours going a bit slowly because they've got all that time. They still come up with mistakes. So I don't think you will get 12 perfect garments if you give them all more time, will you? I don't think you will.
No, I would be the best paid teacher in the land if I got every child in my class on an A grade. The whole point is that you're there and you look at this work, and some kids get an A grade and some kids fail.
No matter what time.
You work with the kids that are not doing very well to try and bring them up.
Yeah, that's right.
But if I got 100% A grades everyone would be banging on my door. I wouldn't be sat here doing videos. I'd be running the country. If I got A stars for absolutely everything could be great. They did not have 12 excellent sewers. We also know that because we've already got rid of about 5 of them.
Yeah.
So, yes, they might be good sewers. There might be a standard there. But then what Patrick is telling us is that these sewers are not that good because they can't do it in that time. And, last week we spent a lot of time banging on about the programme and have they not given them any time? We did our research and said, they do have less time than normal. But if that's because these are supposed to be good sewers, well, then the opposite argument could be true this week in that we actually don't have a batch of very bad sewers. And I don't want to think that because I don't think that is the case.
Yeah.
But that's what Patrick's coming back at us with, isn't it?
Well, that's what he said, because the general standard amongst contenders is really high. They've got to find a way to make sure they separate them by cutting down the time. But we're not asking for loads more time anyway, are we? We're not asking them to have 8 hours. We just want maybe 2 more. So at least they can finish.
Well, not even that. If you take that bomber jacket, and I know we're not quite there yet, but if you take that bomber jacket from the first one, most of them did not hand sew the last part of the lining in. That hand sewing needed 30 minutes more. That's all it needed. We're not talking about adding 3 hours on to that
Yeah,
challenge.
that's right. Absolutely
A
right.
half hour
Yeah.
would be enough.
It's a fascinating interview. Go and watch it, especially from 42 minutes in, and see what you think. Whether you throw your slippers in it, but it's just nice to hear his side of things, and also how they do plan the pattern challenge in particular. So, who did we leave? Who left the show last week? It was Lauren, so we can cover Lauren's grid up, and there we have our 7 sewers left. And we're at week 16. We're over halfway, and we've not talked for a long while about who our favourites are, which is weird. Normally, we're doing it by now, aren't we?
Well, normally you try to force it out of me. I'm always a little bit coy about.
Have we not been able to connect with them because we've been so caught up with the time element and feeling for them that they've not been able to finish? So therefore you can't connect with them because you normally connect with someone that makes something brilliant and you go, wow, that's fantastic, and then you take them on as your favorite. Is that why?
I think there's an element of that, and I think because it's been so varied, it's not like one person has been completing every week, because you'd naturally veer towards them going, well, they're clearly a good sewer, they've completed it every week. The thing is, some weeks some of them complete, and then a different week they complete and someone else doesn't. So there's that inconsistency there. So you can't even think, well, there's this one person who's completing it every single time, so therefore I'll latch on to them. I think we're getting there. I think, I mentioned last week that Ailsa, Pasha and Luke, they're generally doing it. I felt bad afterwards because Alex is genuinely meeting, finishing those good well. But, we saw this week that wasn't the case because, as we said in that first challenge, 5 out of the 7 were unfinished.
Yeah. Okay, let's go into it. So thank you for all your comments. They were phenomenal, really. Let's go into week 6, Kids Week. Can we just do a little bit of appreciation for, is it Kiel? How do you say his name?
Yeah, I think so.
Apologies, Kiel. I love that knitted jumper. Looked great in that.
I did, but I think with it being the summer, part of me was like, Christ, take that jumper off.
So I'm going to be looking through the knitting patterns to spot that and have a go. Right.
That is.
So I
had one like that when I was a kid.
You?
Yeah.
It was very much like that, wasn't it? So there we are. We're into the sequin bomber jacket. Let me go to my notes. They had they had to use sequined deadstock fabric, so that's a whole another discussion about deadstock. They had to think of a colour combination, and they want it to be fun. And obviously, the rib was going to be that the cuff and the rib was going to be the thing to look at. They had 3 hours. Now, when we saw the animation for that, there was no way they were going to do that in 3 hours. The animation must have taken 2 minutes at least to go through all of those.
You just said we weren't going to talk about time. That's all I've got to talk about.
Okay, no.
No, that's all I want to talk about, because it was ridiculous, because this was a sequined bomber jacket. Now, sequins, we saw it on the show. They are a nightmare to work with, because you've got to try and cut the fabric, so you've got them pinging off here, there and everywhere, whichever method you use to cut. Then you've got to try and sew a seam allowance, which, in most times you would pick the sequins out so that they didn't break the needles. I mean, we were talking, 2 or 3 weeks back, about how often do you change your needle? Some of them changed it 5 times in this show because they were breaking all the time. And so, part of me was like, okay, if it was a bomber jacket in a satin type material or something like that, I think 3 hours would have been fine. But the minute you factor in that it had to be lined and it had to be sequins, it was just like, well, I can tell you that's not enough time. Yeah. I don't care if you've sent it out to Coco Chanel to make it up. That's not enough time.
I've got some interesting facts here. Can you remember Mark? I think he was one of our favourites from Series 6. I think he was the same year as Raph. Was it Raph? Rafe?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They had to make a bomber jacket.
Yeah.
But it didn't have a lining. They had 4.5 hours.
And it was an adult one, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. But there we are. We said we're not going to talk about timing.
But
Oh
then,
dear.
it's about the consistency, isn't it? Because then we were saying, was it last week, that the Nehru jacket wasn't lined. And it should have been. If it was going to be wearable, it should have been lined. Yet
Yeah.
this had to be lined, and you had to work with sequins.
Yeah. In 3 hours. Yeah.
And you and I had a bet on how many would be unfinished. And there are only 7 contestants, and I went with 5. And I was right, and I counted them down on our WhatsApp, I do believe.
You did. If we need evidence to prove it, we could do. There's the sample one, and it just made me laugh because as soon as they said 3, 2, 1, go, oh my God, there was a massive bun fight for those fabrics. Look, poor old, this is Alex here. Look. She's trying to get a hand there. That's where it is. You can see they've only got so many bolts there. You're left with it.
Well,
so
that's the trouble with dead stock, isn't it? You want to make sure you've got enough to do what you want to do. And there was a chance that maybe the colour you picked, there wasn't enough of it.
In that interview with Patrick, he did say, he said, do you know what sometimes sewers need to do is when we say go get the fabric, they need to sit and read the pattern. We've had a talk about this, haven't we? Because he says no one reads the pattern. And he was saying if they perhaps read the pattern, they could probably see, what proper fabric to get. And I'm thinking, and he said those 15 minutes could perhaps help. But it's like, well, yeah, but if you did that and read the pattern, all your fabric choices are going to be gone because everyone else has nicked it, haven't they?
Well, just because you don't read the pattern, that's all.
But no one does, do they? They just go for the fabric first. But that creates the fun. And that's when he said that the producers sometimes will be rubbing their hands when they see people pick up all sorts of fabric.
But it's a bit different with this because they had to use that sequin fabric.
Yeah.
When they've been told, oh, you could just go over to the haberdashery and it's over there, and some people will choose a cotton and some will choose a silk. That's when the fabric choice becomes more important. They had to use what was in front of them there.
Absolutely.
So they knew that there was no, choice to kind of sit and contemplate.
And of course, during that sequence of the pattern challenge, we're seeing problems. They had all problems with stretching the neck piece. Some of them seemed so long that they couldn't then stretch because you're supposed to pull the rib to fit it into that neck space. But they all seemed to have issues there, didn't they? And then, of course, the whole inside out thing, putting the lining, which way is it? So when you turn it, that was funny.
I'd love to see you have a go at that because your concept of inside out, back to front, upside down is you just can't comprehend that. So I would pay good money to come and sit and watch it. You do that in the shop.
It is so hard. I would have definitely been one of those sewers that got it wrong and started to turn it and go, oh no, because it's so hard for my brain. It actually fries my brain trying to read the pattern, let alone.
I'm not a clothes maker. I made those Christmas stockings, and those Christmas stockings, you had to make the inside, and then you had to sew it out into a huge long tube, and then turn it inside out, and then stuff it inside the stuff. And I remember when you tried to make that, you were just like, I can't do it. And I was like, but I literally sat there for 20 minutes reading and rereading and pinning it, and then going, no, and then eventually going, oh, I can see how that works now. But that's where that's where the time bit is on your side. When you've done something like that before, it comes slightly more naturally because you can kind of think, oh, I remember how that needs to look.
But also, you're on season 10 of the Sewing Bee. These sewers would have watched it over and over and over again.
Yeah, but
are they not doing these things?
But would you? I mean, if you make your own skirt or blouse or something, you're not lining it, are you? So, and a skirt lining is different to the lining of a jacket. That's where, again, you're just kind of like, well, how much of this is people trying to learn new skills and understand what's going on versus it's a race. So therefore, you don't really learn anything because you're just going, oh my God, I can't do that. Oh, I'm going to seam rip it. Oh, I'm going to do that. Oh, I'm going to throw it in the overlocker without really thinking if that's the right thing to do.
Let's take a look at the bottom and the top because, as I say, most of them struggled. And the bottom was Luke. He just struggled with it.
Well, I mean, okay, so he struggled with the neck and he didn't have his lining in. But then again, it was like, how do you put a fag paper between 5 people who all did not have the lining sewn in?
Yeah.
And I suppose because his collar was off,
Yeah, it was,
whereas some others weren't. But
it was a long way off,
again,
wasn't it?
it's a matter of opinion, I know, and we're not there actually judging in person. But, you do have to say, well, how do you rank the 5 that didn't finish?
Yeah. Yes. What aspect are you going to look at more? Which I think was the collar, wasn't it? That's what they looked at. That's how it came across.
Yeah.
So then at the top end was Elsa.
Oh, sorry.
No, there's nothing to say, was there?
I thought that was Luke still.
Because the lining was stitched down, but it was just, she quickly, very quick, but she got it done, didn't she?
Yes, yeah.
But as you say, there still wasn't much in it there.
There wasn't much in it,
No. So you're then really looking at, right, they didn't have that, and that, but then she just did that. So you're judging it from that point of view, aren't you? Did you have any favourites looking at the group picture there?
I mean, no, I don't like Kids Week, and
No.
glittery fabric's not for me. I did quite like the ones where they'd done the different sleeves. I suppose that's a bit of thought.
Yeah, like Alex.
Alex, and then whoever was the opposite, hadn't they? They'd done the body in the blue and the silver in the sleeves or whatever. But that was a bit inventive. But then, do you want that? Do you not want it all to be the same colour? I imagine if you were a little girl wanting to put this on, I don't know if you'd want it to have lots of different colours. You might want it to all be pink or blue or whatever.
No, just a solid colour, I think.
I felt for I've forgotten her name now.
Georgie?
The second one in next to Marcus.
Yeah, Georgie.
She chose that fabric that was actually striped.
Yeah,
so you can see through it, as opposed to the sequins being completely solid. And then that just made it even more tricky to work with, because you were working with a very thin piece of net that you could see through as well. I don't think that was a very good choice. And, if you're going to say, like Patrick said, to stop and read the pattern, it might have been a good idea. But then I don't know if there was an alternative she could have used, because like you said, everyone was grasping for it.
If you're planning this as a task, you're the Sewing Bee team, are you planning, okay, let's do sequins because kids will like it, or are you using, let's do sequins because you know damn well it will make some good footage?
Well, it'd be a bit of both, really,
both.
wouldn't it? Or is it someone's just gone, oh look, we've got a bag of sequin material here, what can we do with it? You don't know, do you?
True. We've got this for free. Someone's donated it to us. We've got to make a challenge out of it, save a couple of bob.
We've got our new employee Betty, who's come from the Strictly Studios. We've got a load of material.
The transformation challenge, which I have to say I did love this. They had a beach towel. They were allowed 2 towels and then a free-for-all in the haberdashery. They had to make a fancy dress outfit for a toddler and be a recognisable an animal. This is fun, isn't it?
I think I said to you on the chat last night is that it's mildly interesting because it's something that you might actually do. If
book week or book day, whatever it's called.
Yeah, or if you've got a little fancy dress and you've party to go to, you could see, cutting up an old couple of towels to do it. I feel that, we've said in the past about how a lot of these transformation challenges wastes more than it saves. Whereas this, I felt, was a little bit more realistic because you would, if you've got the skills, obviously, you would go, oh yeah, I could do that. So it was quite nice to see those sorts of things as opposed to stuff that was...
Yeah.
Well, I'd say stuff that was thrown together. We got a couple there that looked like they were thrown together.
And I think that's where this round, with this specific task, has shown the skill level of certain sewers. Because I think here you can clearly see. So we've got Pasha, and we've got Alex. Could you say the swan and the fish, Luke and Susie? I think they're of a.
That's the Dalmatian.
Oh, the Dalmatian, yeah. Oh, that's Elsa. Oh, sorry. Take that back. Yeah. Oh, I can't spell it. Sorry, Elsa. That's Elsa's one.
Yeah.
Oh, are we seeing there's some proper engineering, clever design work going on here at last?
I think we're saying maybe there is maybe they are a better quality sewer. I think certainly with those four,
Yeah,
you've got a design element in
yeah,
there, and to a certain degree, I would expect that. I mean, we know that Luke has got the background with the drag queen, so they would be creating outfits that they want to have an outrageous silhouette, and I think like Ailsa and Pasha, I think they're young enough to think, well, like, yeah, I want to be able to kind of draft my own patterns and sort things out. So I think there is an element of they've probably got that sort of interest in designing rather
yeah,
than just following a pattern. And then sometimes when you get people who are pattern followers, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a pattern follower. I'm not creative. I see a pattern, love a pattern, make the pattern, but don't ask me to come up with my own. There's nothing wrong with being a pattern follower, but then when you give them this sort of task, it doesn't come out, and we saw that with a
no,
couple of them
yeah.
at the other end of the scale.
It's a different part of the brain, I think, this round.
Yeah,
And I can understand that's why they like it, because there are some people who follow patterns and there are some people, free spirits, who design. But you look at that shot there, that's just
I was
genius.
absolutely bowled over with
Yeah,
what she was able to do in that amount of time.
yeah.
And then you step back and look at the rest. I mean, not all of
Oh,
them. So,
that's
but
true.
you look at
Some
others and you
others.
go, hang on, you had the same amount of time
Yeah,
as Pasha, and she's made that, and look at what you've done.
yeah. But look at the thought of the bottom of the towel there. She got the
Yeah.
tail with all the spikes on as well. But the face, I think we said in the chat straight away, that's going to be garment of the week. We just knew it.
Yeah, we did.
It just looks sharp. Look at the detail of that little
And
eye.
it was sewn. These last few
Yeah,
weeks for this transformation challenge, excuse me, it seems like it's just been pinned on the mannequin. It's not actually been sewn together. Whereas that had to be
yeah,
constructed. The
yeah.
seams on that head.
It's superb, absolutely. And then let's move to Alex's, because I'm a Lion King fan. So when I saw this, I was like, oh my God, that's just like Simba's headpiece. It's really clever with the boning in it. It's just, that's striking. I turned up to a party with that on. I thought it was inspired.
People think you're Cher rather than a lion. I think, given the material they had, I think that is for me. I could see where you were going to go with the Lion King straight
Yeah,
away, but obviously, if this was real life, you'd probably try to come up with something a bit more shaggy. But when the instruction is you've
yeah.
only got two towels, I think she did really well to come up with something that represents that.
So when you see that and you see how much boning is going on, what do we think happened with Georgie? Because it was kind of edited like she was miles behind, wasn't it? And all she had was the two wings. I think there boning in the wings as well. I'm not sure.
So, I,
I
again,
felt for her.
this would be me because I'm not a designer. So I think she tried to spend so much time working out how those wings were going to stay still. Because at the end of the day, it's a towel. That towel would have flopped over, and
Yeah.
it needed something in it, and you couldn't just stuff it
No.
because you'd have to use a million miles of stuffing to make it firm
Yeah.
enough to hold
She's
up.
got
So
something
I
in
think she
here.
spent so much time creating the skeleton
Yeah.
inside with the boning that then she ran out of time to actually do any meaningful sewing and turn it into something a little bit more spectacular,
Yeah.
like we saw with the other ends with Pasha
Oh,
and all of that lot. So I felt for her in that respect, but then at the
yeah.
same time, that is when you go, well, hang on a minute. We're talking about time, so maybe we do need to talk about quality of sewers, because you've then got that dragon, you've got the fish, you've got the lion,
Yeah.
and then you've got a pair of wings. That
Yeah.
because the dress that she made was simply a tube with a massive bit of elastic sewn
That's right.
through it.
Um,
So
I was a bit intrigued as well. I don't know whether you spotted this, but my continuity eyes. So this was the pre-recorded shot that they obviously do at the end of the day when the sewers have gone home. But during the judging of it, look at the difference. If I get the right picture. So when she finished it and brought it forward, the design is towards us. Look, because you can see the
Yeah.
curly whirly bits at the bottom there. But
But
actually,
hang on a minute.
but when you look at it there,
But it hasn't got the green and that on.
yeah, the green. If you've got to look really carefully, it's the green is there. It's
Not on the
behind.
big bit. It's on the big wings.
Is it? Oh yes.
Yeah, look.
Oh, unless it's upside down. Oh, I don't
Well,
know.
then again, it's been fiddled with, hasn't it?
Well,
Because
it's
there's
certainly
nothing on
been.
the bottom, so it's upside down on that one, or one of them's upside down.
Yeah, I couldn't get it. It's like, oh, why they put the? I don't know whether she perhaps in the rush she's put it on the mannequin wrong. So therefore, when they then privately filmed it for the close up, they turned it round properly how it should have been.
But then, well, no, because then that just makes the whole thing about me being annoyed with the production of the show even more so, because that's not what we saw. That's what we saw.
Yeah.
That's what was judged. They've come out and said, oh, these pieces are judged for half an hour each, so they can take in and really see what's going on. So they looked at that for half an hour, and then they've decided, oh, when we come to film it, we're going to turn it around and put it on the other way.
Yeah, but that looks better than 7th place, doesn't it? That's bottom place. That looks better than that. Does look like 7th place, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I found that fascinating. So there we go. So we had. Oh, I didn't do the rankings on the other round. Yeah. So we had Georgie in 7th place. Let's go back to the group shot. Marcus, Georgie in 7th, and then top was of course Pasha there. That's close. Pasha and Alex.
I was going to say, aren't they in the right order there? I think that's what the order they were in, wasn't it?
Pasha, no. Ailsa was third. Ailsa.
Okay.
4th is the Duck Swan.
That was ridiculous.
Well, the feet were cool though, weren't they? Where is it? Come on, Susie.
Okay, so we're just going to look at the feet, are we? And go, that was fine. It looked like
there's lots of pieces. There's lots of bits to it. So is there, a lot to it for an hour and a half?
Okay.
We'll swiftly move on then. So we're going into the made to measure with Georgie in the bottom for one round and Luke in bottom for one round. How were you feeling about that?
Well, because of what I'd said about Luke last week, I was actually not very happy that there's a chance that Luke could have gone, because I'm starting to warm to him and his creations. And I know we've said this in the past with other, past series, you have a bad week and you're gone. But, based on what we've said over the last few weeks about how him, Ailsa, Pasha, Alex are the only ones that seem to be finishing things, it then was just like, if he goes home now, there are people who have got unfinished garments every single week who are still in that show, and you're saying because he's had a bad week this 1 week, that would be appropriate for him to go. So I was not in the best mood.
Well, I like Georgie, and I was like, it was big. Certainly, I think we were talking. It was talked about Georgie, in our chat, wasn't it? The edit, it was like, she's coming across in the edit as if it's not good for her.
But the thing with Georgie is she's like, you can see yourself in Georgie because she was very enthusiastic and just wanted to give everything a go.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we all want to do. When you see a pattern, you go, oh, I'd quite like to do it because I've never done darts before. Or I'd quite like to do that because it's I've never used an overlocker before. She was one of those sewers who was like, I just want to learn everything. And if I have to, I'll just have a go at it. And I think that's what we're all like deep down. But then you turn around and say, well, this is a sewing competition. And so there will come a point where your skills will plateau because you haven't done everything before. And that's where we were probably at last night.
So no major slippers yet. So nothing's been done. Well, I think it's because we felt a bit meh about it, didn't we? It was kind of, that's kind of nice, but meh.
But the point is I could throw slippers for days about the time. I was upset about the 3 hours at the start.
Yeah.
And then you've just shown that whole continuity thing, which was then shows the producers interfering even more. We could just throw slippers every
exactly.
other round.
It's nothing left to throw. And well, there may be some now because it's an inspired by round. And I got frustrated with this. A lovely concept, but it's still hard to judge. You've got to make an outfit inspired by your childhood or a childhood photograph. Patrick said he wants it fun to wear and to fit well. Now, timing question, because they already had been given 1 hour to cut fabric. They were given 3 hours for the round. So why not just give them 4 hours?
I forgot what you're like with the pen. I mean, but then it also raises the question of, this is a made-to-measure round, so why were they allowed to cut everything out, and then they brought the models in and go, oh, you need to measure your models?
Yeah.
So, yeah, why not give them 4 hours so they could cut it out the right size the first time?
All a bit weird. But we knew that this was going to be an issue. They were obviously going to be judged on the photos, or it was going to form a lot of the debate. So where do you want to start? Who do you want to start with? Anyone in particular?
No, you hit the floor running, whoever you want.
Well, I'm going to hit the floor with Georgie then, because that's where I started to get frustrated. Now, the TV company all nicely put in the inspired photos, so we can just use these because they were obviously going to, they were going to be inspired by their photo to make something. But clearly in the criteria, they were going to be marked on the inspiration. So because she didn't have that D-ring, that one D-ring, it felt like she got downgraded heavily because there was no D-ring there.
Well, it's a difficult one because she did start the challenge by saying that was what she was bringing over from that, and she had it there. It wasn't like she forgot to buy one. She had it there, and that was supposed to be the thing, because she didn't make a skirt. I think I said to you, why are we making all these jumpsuits and boiler suits and everything like that? That seemed to be the common thing. It's like, well, you should have just said make a boiler suit then. But the fact that she didn't get on the one thing, but then you have to say, well, okay, she didn't get on that one thing, but it's still made out of denim, and so is the picture from the past.
Yeah.
And she'd done all the other sewing there, although I know she had some trouble with the poppers and stuff like that. But it wasn't falling off the kid. It just didn't have the D-ring on.
But I'm just trying to think back with my kids with drama. When you give them, you give them an inspired one, right? Here's a picture of a family. Go away and make a play. You do that because it's the easiest way sometimes for them to create content. But you mark the end content. The picture that started it, inspired it all, is long gone. So why we just mark the end product? We just need to mark that, don't we?
Well,
we don't need to link
anything
to that, do we? Or
yeah, but if that was the point of the challenge,
yeah, okay.
They went round and asked everyone about their picture and what was it, because some of it was colour, some of it was shape. None of them reproduced exactly even Ailsa, she was in a Little Mermaid costume, and then she produced a mermaid dress. Yeah. So it was. I suppose that's when you get into the realms of, well, what is inspired? But at the same time, that is what she said she was going to do, and ta-da, that's what she produced. So the other one said she was going to put the D-ring on, and she didn't. So there has to be an element of judgment there, doesn't there?
If that was in the criteria, yes. You just hope that was told to them from the beginning. Then, of course, you could then say, Georgie, well, you were. It says on the criteria you need an aspect.
Well, and I think she
a
did
bit like the calico last week, with Alex not using any of the calico.
Yeah, and realised that she hadn't had time to put it on, and so I think she knew there was an inevitability there that was going to bring down her marks.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not saying she was the right one to go home, but
no. Yeah. Okay, let's have a look at Luke's inspired by, which I loved this.
I mean, I did, but, it's the same principle, isn't it? It's only the braces, because Luke's not wearing a boiler suit there. He's wearing jeans and he's double denim in it there.
Yeah.
But it's the braces that he's taking the inspiration from. Yeah, I mean, I loved it. I didn't have a problem with it, but that's, again, where we are with an inspiration thing.
Yeah.
If he hadn't put those yellow and blue braces. Well, they weren't braces on this one, were they? But the bands on this one, there would be an argument that all he's done is made a boiler suit. So if you're comparing it to Georgie, he has put in the element that is the inspired bit.
I loved it. Loved the colours. Yeah, I thought it was clever. Let's look at Marcus's.
I mean, it was a good bit of sewing, but I understand, the whole astronaut thing. I just didn't. I thought it was very plain material, and with plain material, it will show up every little thing.
Yeah.
And he didn't have time to sew all those badges on, and there is a question about whether he should have sewn those on before he put it all together, because it's a lot easier to sew those on before all the pieces are there, and that's when you go back to the experience thing, because an experienced sewer would go, right, I need to put all this in. Like Georgie did know that she had to do all the double stitching before she put hers together.
Yeah.
So, that's when you're like, well, hang on a minute. She did understand that. And she did do all of that. She just didn't put the D-ring on. But she did do all the double stitching and everything else. And his labels here, his badges, were all held on with safety pins.
I know, it's such a shame.
I turned around and said he shouldn't have done that, then all it would have been was a taupe jumpsuit.
But could it have not just had 2 nice badges there and not have any of all these other ones? Perhaps he just tried too many.
Well, I think that's the issue, isn't it? It's like, if you genuinely meant it, then I feel that you should have sewn them on before you've even put it all together. Whereas it was like, I'm going to spend all my time making this jumpsuit, and then if I have time, I'm going to put these on. It's like, well, if they're genuinely part of your design, and you are genuinely a good sewer, then you'd have practiced and gone, I'm going to sew these on, and then I'm going to cut out the pieces, or I'm going to, cut out the pieces, sew these on, so then I can just go through the sewing machine and get it done. Whereas he would have spent the whole time sewing it, thinking, I need to save time to put these badges on, and then he ran out of time.
I mean, it's 3 hours again, isn't it? It's. I know they're little, but a garment is still a garment, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Collar is still a collar. A cuff is still a cuff.
Yeah.
A popper is still a popper. I mean, like, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 poppers on there. You wouldn't have many more if it was an adult-sized one.
Yeah. It's just... And again, we're getting these unfinished products, and you just feel for them. This is where I'm like, by this point, I'm like, we're at week 6. We've got week 7, and then it's the quarterfinals, and you should be getting stunning pieces, and that's where your just heart goes. I know we're talking about them, and sometimes so as I feel for you, because you put yourself forward to this show, and we feel for you because you haven't had enough time to finish and show off your skills, and we saw that with Susie. I was excited about this patchwork skirt, but that was just she completely just missed it, which is a great shame, because that is fab, isn't it?
I mean, I know they said to her about the size of her squares, and I know what she was trying to say with, I was hoping it would be quicker because they're bigger. But then where did they go? Because there's only one full-size square in the middle, and there's half a square on the bottom and half a square on the top. Yet she was making it, and it was supposed to be 3. Well, it was at least 3 deep. What happened? What happened to the material? It's disappeared.
Yeah, I think something must have.
You put it into context of what everyone else was able to make in those 3 hours with the 1 hour, pre-cutting in advance, and that's all she got. I mean, I don't even think she made the white T-shirt, did she?
Well, I think she must have done, because Alex did here with her inspiration. But Alex did say, I've done jersey T-shirts, I can do that in 20 minutes. So she left that to the end. But when you look at all that, and then you look and you think, for Susie, you must have missed that. Something must have happened with her patchwork. That's all I can think of. Bless her.
Well, yes, because as a patchworker, I can throw patchwork together relatively quickly.
Yeah.
So that's why I was kind of like, well, what's happened to the patchwork? Because she had enough there. There was loads there. I just don't understand what happened in between. Because if you look at the Inspired By picture, that's, 3... It looks like it's 3 levels of patchwork and then a ruffle on the bottom.
Yeah.
I I just don't
Well,
understand what happened.
if we missed something in the edit, let us know, viewers, if there was, maybe we were WhatsApping at that point and so something happened. But there we are. As we finished, were you thinking, oh God, is Luke safe? You were after seeing his,
I was seething, yeah.
yeah.
I did kind of think, yes, I thought he'd done enough to save himself. But then I've also watched this enough times to know that the judges are so fickle that if they've latched onto something, they'll latch onto it.
So who were you saying go, Susie, or were you going Georgie? Because I just didn't. The edit obviously was pushing it towards Georgie for sure.
Really? I thought the edit was pushing it towards Susie.
Well, I did in this round for sure because they
Yeah.
kept focusing on that. Yes, but anyway,
with the greatest respect and will in the world, I just felt that Susie has not had a good few weeks, a good couple of
yeah,
weeks,
yeah,
and
that's.
then
I
it
think
seemed
that's
to be
fair.
the same here. And I feel that just because the D ring was missing, I felt that half of Susie's skirt was missing. I
Yeah,
don't.
that's a fair point. Yeah, that's a fair point. Well, let's quickly go into it with garment of the week. We knew was going to be the crocodile.
Well, we did,
Absolutely.
but like Pasha made it. I think she did say, and I think we can say that as well. They don't normally go with the transformation challenge as garment
No,
of the week, and it was really good. But then you have to then turn and go, well, okay, it was really good,
but
but
yeah,
why wasn't it one of the made to measures? Because
yeah,
that supposedly has been made to fit the model
yeah.
and has had the most time spent on it. Why wasn't anything better than this that was
Well,
done in 90 minutes?
yeah, because they only gave them 3 hours.
Come on, we're not talking about time.
Oh yes. Who went home? Yes, sadly, Georgie went home. But as always, someone's got to go. The judges make their decisions, don't they? They see it, and it's all edited down. We may not agree, but that's why we love the discussion, isn't it? Because we go, I don't agree with that. She should have gone, or he should have gone, and that's why we like talking about it afterwards. So there we go. So sad to say goodbye to Georgie. Week 6, kids' week's done. No slippers there, but in a way, there were probably loads because we throwed so many last week. You kind of all know where the slipper is going.
The last week, the slippers have not been retrieved from behind the TV, I don't think.
Oh, it's just, I don't know what it is. It's
Do you know what, though? The only thing I take away is I look at the comments on these videos and they generally agree with us. And I can take it on the chin. If you turn around and go, I'm talking a load of rubbish, then that's fine. And some people do. They turn around and say that I'm talking a load of rubbish. We ban them, and no, we don't. But that's absolutely fine because you're allowed to have your own opinion. But
of course, free speech.
What is happening is there's a general consensus of people watching this. And then, like I said, I follow a couple of groups just to get a feel of what's going on. And it's the same thing being talked about. And that's when you just have to say, well, it's not me being tired or just having a rant or being really picky about something. It's quite a lot of people talking about it. And like you say, the fact that, I haven't heard of Patrick going on to any other shows. If he wants to come on here, please let us know. But, this idea that he's gone on there and then he was asked about it, again, it's not his decision. It's not his show in that respect. But the fact that he's being asked about it tells you something, surely, as well. And I know there's nothing they can do about it because the show's pre-recorded. They're not going to go away and re-record anything or suddenly re-edit it. It is what it is. It's happened. But I think there needs to be some feedback from, this series this year because a lot of the audience are discouraged by it. And, I mentioned it in the comment I put on the video after I came out of hiding last week, that, it does make you wonder if they've had enough because you annoy enough people and they stop watching, then you stop making the program.
Well, we've always said we've loved it. We're crafters, aren't we? We're sewers. We're makers.
Well, the big debate that is coming about as of this series is that it is no longer that. It is a competition and it is an entertainment program because it's on primetime BBC One.
Well,
when it was on BBC Two,
yes,
the focus could be craft because it was a niche market and people like us were the only ones watching it. Whereas now you're picking up viewers because they're on BBC One and it's an entertainment. It's running off the back of the repair shop. You know, it's that thing where you're picking up those extra viewers who want to be entertained, who may never have been anywhere near the sewing machine. So they want the drama and they want all of that without understanding that people like us who love sewing and have watched it since Series 1 are slightly frustrated by it.
And will probably stop watching. Or you lose that love for, it's the Sewing Beyond tonight. Oh, God, I want to see her do her brilliant makes because we can't see them.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I know they're doing it next season, but maybe we
won't
stop. Absolutely, because we don't want to keep coming each week moaning, do we?
I don't want to be
I don't want to do that
about everything. No,
I
would like to have my moments when there's something controversial, but it seems like I'm talking about the same thing every week. Not someone who's had an absolute shocker, who's been producing wonderful garments, and then this week it's all gone wrong.
And that's where I feel that I don't want our weeks, with another 4 for the final to go. I don't want to be like we're saying the same thing over and over, because that's not enjoyable for you viewers, is it? Unless you're all nodding, yes, it is still enjoyable, but...
Well, we don't have to. Next week, we'll literally do a 10-minute show where we go, well, they did these 3 challenges, and this is what the order was, and somebody went home. Bye. Because if we sat here 2 minutes before pressing record and all we've got to talk about is the fact that nobody's finished again and they didn't have enough time, it's not worth talking about that. We've been there to discuss that topic. It'll be a short show next week if it's the same principle.
Absolutely. There we are. That's what we'll do, because we don't want to keep moaning, do we? We want to celebrate and talk about sewing. We just can't. There's just not enough of it, is there? But Pasha's transformation, I think we'll just finish with that. Let's go back to that before we play out transformation. Where is it? Garment of the week.
Well, not that
one. There we go. It was reminiscent of the grapes. Can you remember the grapes? That got garment of the week.
You love the grapes. Yeah, you love them.
Absolutely. Well, there we are. Next week. Lingerie week. It's either going to be stunning or it's going to be a mess of the messiest of mess.
Going on. That's all that I know, surely, for that. When we had it once before, all it was boning corsets, wasn't it?
So it could either be an hour or it's going to be 10 minutes. That's what it will be, won't it? Thanks everyone, as always. Let us know your comments and see if you can write in the comments without talking about time. That'll be a challenge, wouldn't it? Brilliant. Thanks all. See you. Cheery bye.
Bye.
Bye.